You're still watching Ways. I don't know if we have Tammy now, but today we just want to talk about, because today marks 7 years, right?
Almost 7 years.
Well, today is the 7th, actually. Today,
yeah,
7
wow.
years where the Chibok girls were abducted, you know. So we thought also it's important that we also lend our voice because, I mean, remember Amaka? I saw an extensive report that she did, you know, going to go and interview the parents of these girls that are still missing, you know, and all of that. Even some of the girls that have been rescued, you know, how it's been difficult for them to reintegrate into the society. One lady, I mean, I was watching one of the young girls. She said, she was saying something about, you know, she does not even remember anything about school because she stayed there for 2 years. So imagine she's forgotten a lot of things and all of that. So, I mean, this is one very sour story that has left a very bitter taste in the mouth of a lot of people, and I don't even know, but let me hear your thoughts on this.
You know, when this thing happened, it broke out, everybody was outraged. Even in the international community, they were upset. But at some point, we kept on singing, bring back our girls, but at some point, we stopped and we forgot. And this is what actually, you know, got to me, because some of them probably, they might be in their 20s or their, you know, they've gone past the teens by now.
Of course, because some of them were abducted at 13, 14, add 7 years to that.
So psychologically, right now, they would have felt abandoned by the federal government of Nigeria, allowing them to be taken away from their dormitories when they were asleep at night, you know, the destruction of their innocence in the process and everything. If I were to be in that girl's shoe or the girl's shoes, I will not forgive the federal government of Nigeria, because my country has let me down. My parents, I can't even think about what my parents will be feeling at that particular point in time. And nothing can change the fact that psychologically those girls have been marred for life, basically. So the only thing I can say about this is that I think they have about 112 girls still missing. We had about 276 that were taken from the dormitories at the time. So we need to pray for them to come back and rescue. The government should rescue those girls the same way. Let's not forget the fact that Aisha Shuaibu also has been, you know, Leah Shuaibu yes. It's been reported that she has another child by the same sect of people that abducted her. So it leaves a bitter taste in any woman's mouth when they think of this, the pain and the trauma and the innocence that has been destroyed from these girls. It's painful. That's so Nothing can change it.
You see, if they had told you 7 years ago, because when Chibok happened, I remember clearly, I mean, when former President Jonathan's wife, Patient Jonathan, did the press conference, and you know that thing made, in fact, comedians used it. God is watching. There is God, you know, and all of that. You know, when that thing happened, if they ever told you that 7 years down the line, we'll still be talking about some of these girls not being reunited with their families, would you have ever imagined it in your wildest dreams?
Never. In Nigeria,
that's what is scary for me.
I would never have thought that the Nigeria I grew up in would abandon these girls the way they have been abandoned. Let's not forget the fact that some of them were Christians and they have been converted based on the fact that...
Let's even leave religion. It's my freedom I'm talking about here. You know, I mean, because after Chibok, that year has happened, the Kigara boys, you know, a lot of kidnaps have happened that they have rescued.
But at least those ones, they were rescued
them.
So what was so difficult about rescuing the Chibok
girls? I mean, what is the biggest challenge? Maybe the government is not coming out to tell us what the challenge is, because they should tell us what the challenge is.
And I think that the earlier the government actually, we've gone past the earlier, it is high time that the government actually steps up to actually bring the girls back home to their parents, whether they're in their 20s or not, whether they have kids by these men or not, they should come back home. At least they should be reunited with their parents. It's very important, and let them have a sense of belonging again. Because psychologically, most of those girls that back in the days when they talked about ladies that were abducted by the ISIS, they said that what kept them going was the fact that they had their children with them. Maybe that's the same thing psychologically that is keeping these girls going, because we do not know the mental state of these women, because now they're no longer girls, they're women now. We do not know the mental state of these women, and the fact that the education was cut off. They wouldn't even remember a thing about education, being empowered, being on your own, standing on their feet, because all they're thinking about is going by the law and the violence that has surrounded them all through this period.
Let me try Temi again. Temi, are you there? Okay, because it's sad, honestly, and
it's heartbreaking.
And I would have even loved to understand if these parents, you know, that this thing has happened to, can they even fight this thing legally with the government? Because we cannot not say the fact that there was some level of neglect. I mean, what's it called? Negligence.
Negligence.
Right? Negligence that played out, especially at the time where this thing happened. You know, there was some level of complacency that made this thing to escalate. You know, because I sat down in my house today and I said, okay, where was I 7 years ago? How old was I? So just imagine losing 7 years of your life. Like, I mean, is this even, can you even think about it? Now, international communities came, you know, international communities came and they tried to come in to help, you know. At some point also, maybe you know, there's a filter, there's a body language.
Yes.
There's what you come and you meet, you say, this is serious, she really needs help.
Exactly.
I would help her. Exactly. But when they came in and it seems like, this one, it's not only like, there's also something very shroudy, you know, about the seriousness of trying to rescue these girls. Of course, those people carried themselves and they packed their load and they left, you know. So, I mean, does this even make sense? Because if we continue talking about, and because now, people are getting ready for elections, you know, and we are so quick to forget things in this country. We are so quick to forget things in this country. But you see, the parent, that mother, that father that is there, that has not been able to sleep or eat, some of them have died of hypertension, some of them have died of blood pressure, some of them have just died because they starved themselves, they refused to eat. You understand? Some of those people, they are the ones that are feeling the brunt right now. You know, but let me come to Temi. I think Temi is there now. Hi, Temi, are you there?
Finally.
Finally, we've been having troubles getting you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Temi. How are you?
I know. I'm so glad I can finally in.
Okay.
I'm fine, thank you.
So we are trying to just review Chibok girls 7 years down the line, you know. I mean, it's very, very unthinkable. I mean, I was just telling EC that if I had thought in my wildest dream, when this thing happened 7 years ago, that we'll still be talking about it 7 years down the line, I would say never. Maybe no, it's not going to happen. But this is our reality. This is where we are today. You know, but let me hear your thoughts on the Chibok girls.
It's actually sad. I listened to your conversation. I also heard at least some part of what you said, or particularly the closing lines, closing words you had about how that, you know, how it's very saddening. I can imagine how the parents feel. Like, I didn't know it was 7 years already, like 7. We don't even know if, you know, what if some of them, I can't imagine some of the things that have been done to them. It's really sad. It's really sad. But I'm actually glad that we haven't forgotten. I'm glad that we know that it is 7 years. I'm glad that we're talking about how it is 7 years now, and that this conversation, we're not letting it go. It was really, really sad. So I'm with you on this. Like, when I think about this, it's really sad. I think it's really sad to know that these girls are like girls like us, actually. And I can't imagine, when I think about what could have happened to them, it's really sad.
But Temi, I wanted to ask you, is it possible for these parents to actually sue the government at this point? Because there was some level of negligence, there was complacency, can't they just sue this government? Because it's actually so unfair.
Okay, so like generally, you know how that we know that the security and welfare of the citizens is actually the duty of the government. And so maybe, for example, under the Constitution, we have a part, like chapter 2, that speaks a lot about the things the government should focus on, to put it simply that way. So it will be hard, let me just say, it will be hard to find grounds to actually sue the government, right? Because they need to find something like a course of action, a particular course of action. That, okay, the government did this in this particular case. If you say that you want to sue the government, this government may come out in defense and say that we are doing this because anybody can take an action to court. But it's not just taking an action to court. It's like, okay, what is your ground? What are you going to eventually say in court? So the government will come out and say we are doing X, Y, Z, and something like that. Especially if they don't have any particular thing, to bring up as like a sort of course of action and, be able to prove certain things. It will really be hard because it will be the government saying we are doing this, and, some of these things that the duties or I've forgotten what we call them, chapter 2 of the Constitution, these things that the government should actually do. They are things that you likely not go and sue them for not doing it because we don't see a punishment for if they don't do it, right? Unlike if they were, for example, if it was like a breach of your fundamental human rights, and you can prove that but if you can prove that the government breached your fundamental human rights in some way, then we can talk about the course of action. But the government will say we've been doing our best, we've been searching, we've been doing this, we've been doing that, in their own defense. So I think it's going to...
Okay. All right, so we just thought to mention...
Hi, well, can you see me? Can you hear me?
I was having a bit of challenge hearing you at the tail end, but we'll just take a break because, we thought to just dedicate our What's in the News segment for the Chibok girls, and we are hoping and praying that the girls that are still in the hands of their captors will be released, or they will be rescued, or whatever it is. Let God's divine intervention just happen, and they reunite with their families. All right, so we'll take a break now. When we return from the break, we'll be discussing women empowerment for the 21st century woman. Stay with us. We'll be right back.